Howdy, howdy, this is Mr. Potter. I'd like to thank you for joining into our Hour of Code 2013 project. What we're going to do is we're going to be creating a game using Sharp Develop, which is in the C# language. Now what's really nice about the C# language is that it's very easy to make a Windows program because it uses something called forms. The idea that I can drag a toolbar, I can drag a text box, or I can drag a button onto this form and make it look just like any other Windows application. It's one of the real powerful aspects of C# as an introductory computer programming language. So this is part of the Hour of Code program, which is done by the Code organization, csedweek.org. The whole idea behind this is that anyone can put together code. Anyone can write a program that does something. And the whole purpose of this program is to introduce people to knowing that they can produce computer code. And so what we're going to be doing today is we're going to be creating a real small video game. Just a real simple video game where we can have a pig that runs around and we have to try and catch it. And we're going to be using a program called Sharp Develop to create this program. Now Sharp Develop is a free software program that you can download, and the website will be down in the description. It's icsharpcode.net. And what's really nice about this is that it is free. You don't have to pay any money for it. Anyone can install it on their Windows system. And if you're going to be using this for a Mac or Linux, then you're going to be doing this using something called MonoDevelop, which has a lot of the same functionality. And I'm going to break right here to kind of show you how to install the Sharp Develop program if you don't already have it on your desktop. We're going to start by opening up our browser. And there's two programs that we need to get. The first program that we need to get is on the icsharpcode.net website. And so what we're going to do is go to the IC Sharp Code website. We want to download Sharp Develop, so I'm going to click on the website here. And I want to go up here to download. Now, there are two things that we would need to get at most. The first thing we need to get is the downloads for Sharp Develop 3.2. I'm going to go ahead and click on this link, and it's going to take us to that part of the page. And what I want to do is I want to download the setup program. So this is actually going to set it up on our Windows program, and it should take a few minutes to save. And the other thing is something that you'll need to do if you have an older version than Windows 7. So if you have Windows Vista or Windows XP, then you'll need to go ahead and download the .NET framework. This is something that you need in order to run and create these C# programs. And so this is a link that you can get off the Microsoft webpage. So I'm going to run this installer. Of course, Windows is going to ask for verification. Do I really want to run this since it was downloaded from the internet? And here is my installation setup screen. I'm going to click Next to go to the next screen. Here's the license agreement, which you'll need to take a look at and make sure you agree. And if you do agree, you'll choose Accept and choose Next. We're going to leave these default associations as they come, so I'm going to click Next here as well, and it should install everything to the appropriate folders. So at this point we're just going to wait for the installation to finish. And of course, anytime that we download something from the internet, we need to make sure that we trust where we're getting it from. So I'm going to go ahead and click Yes to accept this. And it goes through the installation process fairly quickly. And now we're done. So we're going to click the Finish button to exit the setup window. And now we have our Sharp Develop icon on our desktop. So now that we have Sharp Develop installed on our desktop, we're going to go ahead and double click on it to run it. We're going to see this little Nemo fish. And what Sharp Develop does is it creates packages of programs that are called solutions. The main idea behind computer science is that when we're trying to write a program, what we're really trying to do is solve a problem. And the whole idea behind using computer code to solve problems is that any big problem can be broken up into a series of steps. And if you know how to address each of those steps, then you know how to solve the problem in total. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new solution. And our solution is going to be a Windows application. So I'm going to highlight Windows application. And it's going to be saving to a directory somewhere on my hard drive. I can change this to be on my desktop or in a different folder, but it's going to put it in your My Documents folder, and it's going to put it in a folder that it creates called Sharp Develop Projects. And I'm just going to call this program Pig. And it's going to automatically create a directory for this. So when I hit Create, I'm staring at code. Now, this code is already written for you, and the purpose of this code is to create the Windows form. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on this little box here that says Design so you can see the form in its entirety. So there's my form. Just a real simple form, and it says Pig on it, because Pig was the name of my project. Now, over here on the right, you're going to see a whole bunch of data about this form. And this data has a lot of parts to it. I see this text box here, this little line that says text that says pig. And I can click in this box to change it. And I can back up and type catch the pig. And when I hit enter, notice that the title bar for my Windows application has changed to say catch the pig. So this text property will actually change whatever shows up on the title bar for this application. Well, that's the first thing that I want to do. The second thing that I want to do is I'm going to have a pig running around in here. Now, you can choose to have your pig running around in slot, but I'd like to have my pig running around in a green field. So under the same section of appearance, I'm going to change the background color. Now, right now, it's basically for a default Windows application, which means it's this control color. But if I click in this area and choose the down arrow, I can change to a different color. Now I've got system colors. I could click here to choose web colors, and there's lots of colors to choose from, but I'm going to go ahead and go to custom, and I'm going to choose this nice green here. Now this green is called lime by the system, but I think it makes a beautiful grass color, don't you? So I've got this field for my pig to run around in, but it's not a very big field. And so what I want to do is I want to change the size of this form. And it's another property that I'm going to change. I'm going to scroll down, and under layout, I'm going to see size. And I want to change the size. Right now it's 300 pixels by 300 pixels. So I'm going to back up, and I'm going to make it 600, 600, because I want this to be 600 pixels by 600 pixels. A nice wide field for my pig to run around in. So I've set up the form the way that I like it. The next thing that I want to do is I want to create my pig. And so what I'm going to do is on the left side of my screen, over here where it says Tools, I'm going to choose Windows Forms. And when I click on Windows Forms, it's going to show me all of these different things that I can add to my form that I've created. I can create a pointer or a special button, but what I'm really interested in is this label, because this label is going to be my pig. So I'm going to click and drag. So I'm holding the mouse button down, and I'm going to drag it onto my form somewhere near the middle of my form. And when I let go of my mouse button, there is my label. Now, if I want to, I can click and drag to move it anywhere that I want on the form. There's several things that I want to do here with this label. First off, it doesn't look like a pig. So I need to make sure that this thing looks like a pig. So I'm going to open up an internet browser, and I'm going to go to a website. The website's going to be down in the description, but I'm going to go to preview.google.com, www.tinyurl.com, and I've set up mistapotta-pig. And this is a really nice pig image that I've set up. I've set it up as a preview, so you're not going to be startled by anything. This is going to take you to my Google Drive, where I've specifically got a pig here. It's a cute little pig. And it's little, because this is going to be part of my 600 by 600 form. So I'm going to go to File. I'm going to go to Download. And this is going to download it to my Downloads folder. So I can click here to show all downloads, or I can right-click and choose Show in Folder, and I'll see the pig. He's right there. There's my beautiful pig. So what I want to do is I want to make sure that my pig is on my label. So I'm going to close these extra windows that I've opened so I can see my form, and there's my not-so-piggy label. I want to add that picture that I just saved to my label, and it's going to be one of these properties over here. So I'm going to go up to my properties, and right here I see image. Right now there's no image in it, but if I click, I'm going to see this ellipses, these little 3 dots. And when I click on those, that's going to allow me to load an image. So this is a local resource. This is on my hard drive. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to select Import. And I want to go to that download folder that I had here. Now, you can do that by clicking on your downloads, and that's probably where it's been saved. But I'm going to choose this pig image, and I'm going to click Open. And so I see there is my pig, and if I hit OK, then I'm going to see my pig on this label. Now, my pig looks a little squished. So what I need to do is I need to change the size of this label so it matches my pig. Size is one of these properties under Layout. Right now the size is 100,23. I really want to make it 64 and 48. These numbers are really nice for the computer because they're powers of 2. The computer deals with information in what's called binary or base 2 notation. And having these nice round numbers, round for the computer that is going to really help the computer to deal with it. So I've set my image to my file very close to this 64 by 48. So if I set my label to 64, 48, I'm not going to see very much distortion. So I've set my pig, but if I look real close, I see the words label 1 right here. I really don't want to see those words. I want to see my pig completely unblocked by text. So I need to take the text off of my label. That's one of these properties over here. So I'm going to go over to text and see where label 1 is currently the text on there. And I'm going to backspace to completely get rid of it. And when I hit enter, now the text is off of my pig. My pig is a pretty pig, uncovered by text. There's one last thing that I want to do. The problem with Sharp Develop is that it has no idea what I'm going to be using this stuff for. So it said, you want a label, here's a label. And I'm going to call this label, label 1. I see over here in the properties that this thing is called label 1. But that's not really a good description of what's going on here. This is not just label 1. This is my pig. And so what I'm going to do is go down to Design and change it from label 1 to label pig, so that I know it's not just any label. This is my pig's label. This label represents a pig that's going to run around on my grass. So I've set up this label, and this label represents my pig. So what I need to do is I need to set it up so that this label will move around. And that's our next step. In order to make this work, I need to set up some type of timer. This is something that's going to make the computer program go tick, 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 tick. And every time it hits one of those ticks, that pig is going to move. That's what we need to do. And a timer is one of these tools that I see under Windows Forms. Should be the very last one on my list. I see timer. And just as before, I'm going to click and drag. I'm going to click on timer and drag it onto my form. Now the thing is, we normally see a pig. We don't normally see a timer. A timer is normally something that ticks in the background. And so I see it here in this kind of cream-colored bar. But if I run my program, I'm not going to see it. All I'm going to see is this beautiful green field and a little pig running around. So what I'm going to do is, this is my timer. And the first thing I need to do is enable my timer, because right now my timer is not enabled. It's not going to be doing that tick, tick, tick that I need it to. And it's one of the properties that I see over here. I see my enabled property currently is false, so I can click on it, and I can choose the drop-down menu to change to true. And now when I run this program is inside going to be doing tick, tick, tick. Not an audible sound, but just some signal that the computer is going to receive to tell the pig to do something. And this is where we're going to tell the pig what to do. I'm going to go down to where this timer is, and I'm going to double click on it. So this is where we're actually going to write some code. And this code is what's going to happen every time the timer ticks. First thing that I need to do is I need to figure out where my pig is. Now remember, if I click on my design, my pig has a location. If I click on my pig, I see the current location of my pig is 233, 232. I've got an X and Y coordinate. So what I need to do is I need to figure out where those things are. And when I want to move my pig, I'm going to change that X and change that Y. So I'm going to go to my software. I'm going to go to my software, and I'm going to change the X and change the Y. First thing I need to do is I need to get the X and Y location of my pig. Notice that I typed that // in front. This is something called a comment. And the whole purpose of a comment is to leave notes to the programmer, either the one who's currently writing this software or other programs who are going to look at this software. The comment is going to be completely ignored by the computer. The computer does not even look at that comment. And it turns it green so that I know it's being ignored by the computer. Notice there's some other comments that have already been put in here by default that Sharp Develop puts in automatically. But what I need to do is I need to add some code here. I need to get the X and Y coordinate of my pig, and I need to store them in variables. Now variables are little boxes that the computer keeps in memory. It puts a little name on the outside of the box and stores a value inside of the box. So I get to choose what the names on the outside of the boxes are. So I'm going to create a variable called X. Now this variable X that I'm creating is going to hold a number, an integer. And the way I tell the computer that is I prefix it with int. So I've got int space X. And I'm going to assign it the value of my pig. Now remember, I gave that label a very special name. I said label pig. That was the name of my pig's label. And I want to access its property. In order to access its property, I'm going to hit a dot. And I want to access its location. And remember that a location has an X coordinate and a Y coordinate. So I want to access the location's X property. So I'm going to do dot X. And in computer science, this is something called object-oriented programming. The whole idea is that this object, my label, has properties, has attributes, and has code that it can run. And I want to access what it has. One of the properties that my pig has is a location. So to access it, I'm going to put the dot prefix here to say that I'm accessing the pig's location. And that location has an X and Y coordinate. So I'm going to hit the dot again to access that X coordinate. And every line of code that I type, every command that I tell the computer to do, has to end with a semicolon. That's just one of the things about computer programming. So I've done this for the x coordinate. I want to do the same thing for the y coordinate. So I'm going to hit enter to go to the next line. I'm going to create another box. It's going to hold an integer, and the name of my box is going to be y. And I want to assign it from my label pig. I want to get its location, so dot location. And I want to access the y coordinate, so dot y. So I've gotten the x and y location from my pig, so I can manipulate it later. I can add 10 or subtract 10 to make the pig move right or left, or make the pig move up or down. So that's the first thing that I need to do. Figure out where my starting location is. The second thing that I need to do is I need to determine where's my pig going to go. I need to come up with a random number. Now there are 4 directions that my pig could go. My pig could go north or south or east or west. And because there's 4 possibilities, I need to get a number that has 4 possibilities. Now the first thing I have to do is I have to tell my computer to create a random number generator. Now, just like if I wanted an integer, I used int. If I want a random number generator, I'm going to put random. And this is the variable type, but I'm going to create a generator. And I need to assign it something. So I'm going to assign it, and I want the computer to just give me a new random number generator. So new random. So just as I did before, I'm declaring a variable. I'm telling it the type of box and the name of the box. I'm assigning it a value, and the value in this case is a random number generator. So what I've done here is I've created a random number generator. And what I need to do now is I need to ask that random number generator for a random number. So I need to get a random number. So I'm going to ask my generator to give me a random number. But I need to store that random number. So I'm going to call it int direction, and I'm going to assign it the value from my random number generator. So I'm going to ask my generator to give me the next number. Now I'm going to tell it the next number from 0 to 4. In reality, what's going to happen is my random number generator is going to give me a 0 or a 1 or a 2 or a 3. It's going to give me numbers from 0 up to, but not including, 4. So I've declared a variable called direction, and I've asked my random number generator to generate a number for me. So at this point, I have a direction that it's going to go. Now my directions right now are 0 or 1 or 2 or 3. They're not very helpful directions. So what I need to tell the computer next is, what does 0 mean? And so I need to actually move my pig. And what I'm going to do is something called the if command. If something is true. So in other words, if my direction is 0, then I want my pig to move a certain way. If my direction is 1, then I want my pig to move a certain way. If my direction is 2, then I want my pig to move a certain way, and so forth. So I'm going to say if, and then I'm going to open parentheses because I need to know if something is either true or false, and inside the parentheses I'm going to put my expression. If direction is equal to 0. And I want to draw attention to this because when I was assigning, when I wanted to actually change a value, I used a single equals sign. And notice I used the word assign. I said x gets the location, or the generator gets a new random object. But if I'm testing for equality, I want to know, is direction really and truly equal to 0? That really and truly is why I've got 2 equal signs there. I use a single equal sign for assignment, and I use 2 equal signs to test if things are really equal. And if the direction is equal to 0, then I want my pig to do something. I want to move my pig a certain direction. So I'm going to say label pig.location gets, I want to move it to a new point. So I'm going to tell it, make a new point. And this new point is going to have an x-coordinate and a y-coordinate. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the x-coordinate that I already had, but I'm going to make make my pig move up 10 pixels. So I'm going to increase the y-coordinate by 10. Now in reality, moving up actually decreases because the y actually increases from the top. I've got row 0, then right below that row 1, then right below that row 2, row 3, row 4, and so forth. So this plus 10 is actually going to make my pig move south. If my direction is equal to 1, then I'm going to say label pig dot location is assigned a new point x comma y minus 10. So this is going to make my pig move north. And I'm going to do this for my other directions. Remember that my random number generator has created a next number between 0 and 4. In other words, 0, 1, 2, or 3. So I've got direction 0, move the pig one way. Direction is 1, move the pig a different way. This is moving it up and down based on the y-coordinate. So my other two situations, where if the direction is equal to 2, then label pig.location gets new point where I'm going to take x plus 10 and y. Notice here I'm just changing the x-coordinate, just making it move to the right 10 units, 10 pixels. This is going to make my pig move east. And then if the direction equals 3, then label pig.location gets new point x minus 10 y. And this makes my pig move west. So this is what I've done so far with my pig. I figured out where was my pig. I found the x and y coordinates of where my pig was. I created a random number generator, and I asked for a random number between 0 and 4. So there's a 0, or a 1, or a 2, or a 3. And then I said if the direction is 0, move the pig south. If the direction is 1, move the pig north. If the direction is 2, move the pig east. If the direction is 3, move the pig west. So this takes care of my pig's movement. And now I need to do one final thing. This is every time the timer ticks, this happens. Well, if my pig runs off the screen, then I want to stop my timer. So what I need to do is I need to ask the computer, has my pig moved off the screen? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use if again. So if x is less than 0, because if x is less than 0, I'm off the left side of my screen. Or, now what I've done here is I've used the vertical line symbol. It's right below the backspace symbol. It's shift backslash. And then I'm going to say x is greater than 600. So this lets me test for one or the other. So if x is less than 0, or if x is greater than 600, then my pig's moved off the left or right end of the screen. I also need to check if the pig has moved off the top of the screen, if y is less than 0, or if y is greater than 600. So what I've done is I've checked to see if my pig's moved too far left, or too far right, or too far up, or too far down. And if this is true, then I need to do a couple of things. And because I need to do a couple of things, my if needs a little bit of backup. And so we have these braces that we use to tell whenever we have an if statement that needs to do more than one task, I need braces. Notice here, if was only doing one task, so it didn't need braces. But here, my if's going to do two things. The first thing I'm going to do is tell my timer to stop. So timer1 dot enabled gets false. So that's the first thing I'm going to do, because if my pig goes off the screen, I don't want the program ticking anymore. And the second thing that I need to do is I need to let the user know that they've lost the game. So I'm going to do this in a message box. So I'm going to type message box dot show, and inside here I'm going to put in quotations, the pig escaped. So I've got quotations, and inside parentheses I've got the pig escaped. So a lot of stuff is happening every tick. Now the way that we've got our ticks set up, if I go back to my design, the way that I've got my ticks set up, if I click on timer, notice that it's ticking every 100 milliseconds. I can change this number if I want it to go faster or slower. If I want it to go faster, I'm going to make this number smaller. So there's going to be ticks every 50 milliseconds or ticks every 75 milliseconds. And if I want it to go slower, then I'm going to make this a bigger number. I make this a tick every 200 milliseconds or a tick every 250 milliseconds. So that is my timer. Notice that in our timer code, we're doing four things. The first thing I'm doing is I'm finding out where my pig currently is. The second thing that I'm doing is I'm choosing a random direction. The third thing that I'm doing is I'm actually physically moving my pig by changing its location. I'm saying its location gets a new point somewhere on my form. And then the fourth thing that I'm doing is I'm checking to see if I've lost the game. And if I've lost the game, then I'm stopping the timer and letting the user know that the pig escaped. Well, that's kind of a downer. So let's talk about what happens if we win. Going back to our design, I think that if I'm able to click on my pig, then I've won. So what I'm going to do is, just like we double-clicked on timer to add code for our timer, we're going to double-click on our label to add code for our label. So this is actually going to set up what happens when we click the pig. And if we click the pig, we've won. So if we've won the game, there's two things that I want to do. One is, if I've caught my pig really should stop moving. And the timer is what's making my pig move, so I need to stop the timer. So the first thing I'm going to do is say timer1 dot enabled gets false. And the second thing that I want to do is I want to let the user know that they've won the game. So I'm going to say message box dot show you caught the pig. So every time that the pig is clicked, which should only happen once a game, I'm telling them two things. One is I'm stopping the timer, because there's really no more reason for my pig to run around. And the second thing that I'm doing is I'm letting them know that they won the game. You caught the pig. So we've got all this action going on here. I've got my design, this form that I created. Notice that on my form I changed the appearance to lime, I changed the text to catch the pig, and those are things that I physically see on my form. I had a label, and this label now has an image. Where's my image? There's my image right here. It's an image that I've downloaded from the website. The description has the link. And it's got a location, which is very important to us. This location is actually how we track the pig and how we see if we've caught the pig. And it also has a size. I created a timer object, and this timer object is really keeping track of a lot of stuff. This timer is really the mechanism that allows my program to run. Because every time this timer ticks, every 100 milliseconds, it's doing four things. It's finding out where the pig is, it's choosing a place for the pig to go, it physically moves the pig, and then it says, is the game over? Did the pig escape? And that's where the timer is doing the mechanism of the game. Our win condition is by double-clicking on the pig. And when I double-click on the pig, I get this code where the timer has stopped, and a little message pops up that says, you got the pig. Now, it is very rare that when you run the program for the first time that you're going to have no mistakes. And I may have a few mistakes up here. But I see a little play button right here, this little green triangle, and this is going to run my program. Now, as you saw earlier, I had a little message box that popped up from my antivirus software. And this is a new executable file that my computer's never seen before because I just created it. And so when I run it, it's actually going to check that executable file, and you see it pop up here. So in about 15 seconds or so, we'll see a running around little pig. No problems found, so the application will start in a few seconds. And let's see. And there's my little pig. Now, remember that I'm only moving the pig about 10 blocks at a time. So my pig is moving around very little. And there's two ways that I can fix this. Let me go ahead and click on the pig so that I can see that I did catch the pig. Notice the pig stops moving. As I mentioned, there's two ways to fix this. One way that I can fix this is in this code for my timer. Instead of just moving it 10 pixels, I can move it a little bit more. I can move it, say, 30 pixels. But I need to make sure I change it in all of these spots. Now when I run it, and by the way, now you see my pig is running around quite a bit more. It's moving more on each tick. And hopefully we'll see my pig run off the field in just a bit. Come on, piggy, you can do it. You can also see it's a lot harder for me to catch the pig because it's moving around so much. But another thing that I could do, let me go ahead and close this, is under my timer, if I click on Design and click on Timer, I can change this interval to a smaller number. If I change this interval to, say, 50, and then I try and run it, that's going to make my pig move twice as fast. And you can see my pig's moving quite fast. He's getting kind of close to the edge. Oh, the pig escaped. Darn. So let's try one last time to catch our pig. Ah, pig escaped again. Well, you can make this pig as fast or as slow as you want to by changing either of those two locations. Just be careful if you change both, because then your pig might be too fast for you. It's nothing like a greased pig to escape from you. But I hope you've enjoyed building this little game. I've certainly enjoyed helping you to create it. So let's talk about what we've learned from here. We've learned something about object-oriented programming. The idea is that we can build objects and have these objects interact with other objects. And we had two main types of objects in the program that we made. We had form objects, the actual objects that we could physically see, such as the window or the label, or objects that interacted with those things, such as timers. These are actually form objects, objects that we got by placing items directly onto the form. And we also had programming objects, objects that we had to create through code. We had to physically create our random number generator using the random object. And we had to create individual locations for our label to move to using the point object. But all of these are objects that we created, objects that interacted with each other to get the game to work the way that we wanted. We also dealt with objects having some properties to them, some things that made them useful. And there were two main properties that we had. Objects had attributes. In other words, there was data about the objects that we had to get and we had to change. So, for example, the location of a label, where that pig is, we had to figure out its x and y coordinates. Depending on what our random number generator got us, we had to change that x and y location. And then we had to change its attributes so that my label actually moved. We also were able to change the background color for our main form in order to make it look like that beautiful green grass. And we also had the enabled attribute. The enabled attribute we had to set at the very beginning in order to get our timer to run, but we also used it when our game was over, either because the player won or because the player lost. So objects have these attributes, but they also have methods. Methods are little snippets of code that get run under certain situations. So for example for our timer, we had the timer tick method. That meant that every time our timer had a tick, it would do the code within the tick. So it would find our x and y coordinate, it would create a random number, it would move our pig appropriately, and it would check to see if our pig had moved out of bounds. We also had the next method for our random number generator, and the sole purpose of this was for the computer to give us a random number, which we then used to determine where our pig was going to head. And we also had the label pig clicked method, which allowed us to figure out, okay, when is the pig actually being clicked? Because that was our winning scenario. That was our end game scenario. So when the label was clicked, we had to set our timer to be no longer enabled, and we had to send a message to the user letting them know that they won the game. So these are some of the methods that we talked about, and methods are a very important part of computer programming. We often hear them called functions or procedures in this language and in other languages. And we had two user-defined methods. These were methods that we had to come with on the fly because the computer had no idea what to do when the timer ticked. The computer had no idea what to do when the pig was clicked. And so when we had these situations, the code was completely blank. It was a blank slate for us to put in what we wanted to happen to our pig when it got clicked, to our timer when the timer ticked. And we assigned these methods to a particular object through something called listeners. And the simple act of double-clicking on the form object, when we double-clicked on the timer or when we double-clicked on the label, this is what allowed us to connect our timer with our timer tick method and our pig label with our label pig clicked method. It was this double clicking that allowed us to access the code, but the act of double clicking also created a listener for that label or a listener for that timer so that these objects and these methods were connected. So we had these user-defined methods and we had these objects to interact with them, but we also had some more lower level things going on. Sometimes I didn't need an entire object, sometimes I just needed a number. And that was where variables came in. So I had to create some variables in this program. I had a variable called x, I had a variable called y. These two variables kept track of where the pig was in a particular location. And then also I had my integer direction, which was the random number generator's selected number, either 0 or 1 or 2 or 3, determining if we were going to go north or south or east or west. But in reality, timer 1 and label pig were also variables. These just happen to be variables that hold objects. In other words, these just happen to be instances of our classes of objects. An instance of a timer, which we called timer 1. An instance of a label, which we called label pig for our purposes. The other thing that was really important was the idea of conditional statements. The idea is that we had some code that was only run under select conditions. And the main way that we did that was with the if statement. And our if statement always had a parenthesis that followed, and inside this parenthesis was a Boolean expression, an expression that would either be true or false. And inside these parentheses, we tested for equality to see if our random number generator direction variable was equal to a 0 or a 1 or a 2 or a 3. But we also checked to see if our pig was in bounds. We checked to see if the location of the pig was between our 0 to 600 for x and our 0 to 600 for y. So we had to check to see if the location was less than a certain value or greater than a certain value. And the code that follows is only run under those select certain conditions. So only if the direction value was 0 was our pig going to move in that direction. And only if our pig was out of bounds was the timer going to be disabled, and we were going to receive a little mention that said, you lost the game. So these are all different programming aspects that we've talked about in this game, and we certainly could go into a lot more detail if we had more than just an hour time. But I do appreciate you spending some time with us, learning some code. I hope that this motivates you to experiment, because this is how truly people learn, is by experimenting with the code, changing the variables. Just as we did, we changed the variation in the tick from 100 milliseconds to 50 milliseconds to make our pig move faster, or how we also changed the amount that we added or subtracted to our x and y values from 10 to 20 to make our pig move a farther distance. And that allowed us to change the difficulty of the game. So I do appreciate you watching this video. I hope you've learned something. If you have any questions or comments, please go ahead and leave them down below. I do appreciate it. If you want more computer programming stuff, please visit my website, mistapotta.com, or visit my YouTube channel, which is mistapotta OHS. I appreciate you watching. Have a great day.